Hi everybody, I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. I'm also the author of Social Selling. With me today is Ian Moyse. Ian, I'll get you to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm sales director at Axios Systems. I've been in sales approaching around 30 years. I think if I check my LinkedIn profile, a great deal of that, 2/3 or more, I've been in sales leadership, and came into social selling more accidental than by plan, initially through use of LinkedIn. But over the last 5 to 7 years, I've slowly realized the change of dynamic in the buying process and moved into using other platforms as part of the selling process.
So what's your definition of social selling, Ian? How do you describe it?
So I'm trying to think what you said in the book now, Tim, to tick the box. But I would describe it as using social media and tools within that sphere as part of your selling process, as simple and generic as that. Because I think it varies depending on the type of product, technology, service you're selling and the audience. So B2C is very different to B2B, mid-market, small business, through to enterprise. Again, very different how you may engage and who you'd engage with. And certainly from your social selling book talking around, and I've noticed this, that not all the C-levels and the older generation are using anything past LinkedIn, often not even LinkedIn. Yeah. So your engagement with them isn't going to be as feasible as you'd think.
Yes.
But you can certainly engage with the people who influence them and are their go-to people advisors, and the millennials and the up-and-comers and the stars in their business are going to be on this medium because they'll understand it and see it as a key tool as part of their working life.
And salespeople, do you think that they should drop everything and move to social selling, or do they need to sort of mix social in, or what's your recommendation?
And I think it indicates one of the fears I see in a lot of sales teams and audiences is that the expectation that social selling replaces what I'm doing and it's black and white. I stop what I'm doing and just social sell. And that's not the case at all. So, I see the whole utilizing the online social world as another part of your selling kit bag.
Right.
It's another tool in there that you need to use in parallel with what you've done before. So your closing methodology, your engagement with customers, your qualification, all of that still exists. But this gives you another medium to engage with. So the same as if we go back, and you'll remember this, before email or early days of email, you'd engage with customers and a lot of it would be on fax. I'm coming to you, can you send me a fax to your office? Or you might confirm the follow-up over fax. That just doesn't exist or happen anymore. Email's taken as granted and has become, alongside the phone, a selling tool that is used. All that's happened with social is it's happened far, far quicker, and it's more dispersed. There isn't just one social platform. Of course, there's a lot, and people perceive it as more complex, often more hip, and more for the youngsters, and it doesn't fit. And it does. It certainly does. But it has to be used in parallel with your other marketing and sales methodologies.
And what about this view about this sort of like instant gratification? The fact that on the telephone you can instantly find people and phone them up and talk to them, whereas people talk about social. It takes 6 to 9 months. What's your view on that?
It's a very good point, and I'd argue that if you have a target list of customers, let's say medium, large size business, I really want to speak to these are my ideal customers. Are you really, and do you really have a sales team who can pick up the phone and just speak to them as you just described? That's the ideal world, I agree. But my experience, that doesn't happen, because those recipients of those calls, unfortunately, you're not the only one calling. They're getting emails, they're getting emails, they're getting phone calls. And I've spoken to some of them in engagement and meetings and had comments of, well, you've done really well to get here in the first place, and asked, give me some feel of that, because we hear that in the market, and they've given me feedback of how many inbound to them cold approaches they get. And I've seen mid-market companies, so not the global one everyone wants to get to, who've described 400 or 500 cold outreaches to them a month. And what they've said is, we just shut down if we don't know who's calling or why, we just have to bounce them. Not being rude, but we have no choice, or we'd never get any work done, because everyone proposes this is going to be the best thing for you. We're going to save you money. Other people like you are using it. They've heard every pitch they're going to get, and every approach. And most salespeople are taking the front door approach of still knocking on the door with a phone call, an email, or an email. And how many of those get through? Very, very few. So I see social selling as, in parallel, it's going to get you to customers that you're not going to get to anyway. But yes, it will take longer. But what would you rather? You have your salespeople do 9 calls, 30 calls, 50 calls, and every call you do is burning a bridge of, they're flagging, oh, that's them again. Less and less likely to get through. There's a point at which it tips, I think. Some stats, 7 or 8 phone calls get you through, but then I think you go the other way of you're marked badly.
I've run cold calling days where salespeople have said to me that was a total waste of time. It's like, well, why was that? And it said, well, we couldn't ever get through to anybody. Whereas on social, it's far easier to actually contact people and engage with them. And I think sometimes, certainly now running my own business, I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm having to reach out to people. And yes, I'm probably getting, people are probably talking to me, if I contact people on LinkedIn, it's not everybody who comes back to me. But the fact is that, I'm still getting meetings through LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's important is that rolls into this is, for what you're approaching them for, that buyer, whether it be an actual buyer or an influencer or someone, whoever in that business you want to engage with, is going to check you out. Particularly if you do it on social, they're going to come back and look at who you are, your profile on whichever media platform you've used, and potentially the others, and try and engage. Do they want to talk to you, not just your business, but it's you as a person that is represented? This is why I encourage people to think about their online bio and how they're perceived. You may not have accolades and awards or whatever, but you can certainly have a professional, it's basics, right? Professional picture.
Yes.
And there's something in there that explains, if they look at it, go, this seems like a reputable guy or gal that I'd want to engage with. They seem professional. Maybe you've blogged something, but how you're seen and perceived, they're going to make a very snap first impression judgment of, would I want to talk to this person anyway?
Yes. And I think that people underestimate the amount of judgment that actually goes on when people look at LinkedIn. And what I usually say to people is that people are going to have a view about whether that meeting will be interesting based on your LinkedIn profile. And if you look pretty boring and dull, they're going to think it's a boring and dull meeting. And they may even decide not to have the meeting because they've already seen somebody else who's got an interesting LinkedIn profile, and they may even be drawing up a shortlist based on that. I do know that there are companies that are looking at profiles when they're buying consultants, and somebody will propose and say, we're going to, this level of consultant and it's this amount of money, and companies are actually going on LinkedIn and said, you said that this is a consultant, and actually I've looked at them and they've only just left university. It's a graduate, so I'm only going to pay a graduate rate. So that,
well, if we're interviewing, right, we all do it. And I interview a lot of salespeople, and this is, I think, an indicative, is social selling really mainstream at the moment? And I don't think it is, because or certainly people think they're doing it, but don't realize the breadth of what it really is.
Right.
I interview a lot of salespeople, have been doing it recently. And one of the first things I do randomly during the process, what do you know? The usual one is, what do you know about us as a company, right? But I ask, and what do you know if I'm there with me or a couple of colleagues? Did you know you were meeting us? Yes. Tell me something about each of us. Don't expect to know chapter first, but there should be something that stands out. They've checked into, like, for example, oh, I know you used to work at such and such. I worked there, but we were at different times. Yeah. Something that shows they've looked and registered. Perfectly, though, what I'd rather have is they engage that in the conversation naturally earlier on. At the beginning, maybe I'd go with a client and say, oh, I noticed you used to work at IBM. I was there. Where were you? What were you involved in? Because I worked there at this period.
Did you know Fred?
Some connection. And people don't do it. Salespeople don't do it.
I've talked to you about this. We've talked about this before, and I think it's really important for this webcast, because you interview and recruit a lot of people. And I remember you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you actually found that the the level of understanding of social selling, the fact that you're out there and that people are coming to see you, and then you say, tell me something about you, and they go, I don't know. But what you said to me, that actually doesn't stop them getting a job, because you believe that you can teach them this.
Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely. So I look for their attitude and understanding and ability, because I think social selling, and I say to people, it's not rocket science, right? It's not as complex as people perceive it to be. The tools you can use are, and I'm still learning and finding little snippets and tools that make my life easier doing it. Twitter lists I didn't find for quite a while, to be honest, and now I'm sat, I sat in my head thinking, how did I not spot that? It's so simple and so useful. But what I portray to people is I can coach and teach that. What I'm looking for is their attitude and receptiveness. Do they think they know it? I'd rather someone sits there and says, this is what I've read up on social selling, and ask me a question,
right? As
opposed to, well, I'm on LinkedIn and they think they've got it baked, and perhaps you give them a clue. But then, so I'm looking for those that have that malleability to be coached and tuned and change and learn. They know some of it, but they're keen to get it. Yeah. And often I tell them the attitude, right, that's not, and I've even had people say to me, yeah, this new stuff, that's not real selling. That's not part of it. And okay, you've got to be reinventing yourself all the time. I don't care what age you are. I'm not looking for millennials necessarily. I'm looking for people who get it and understand. They've got good sales methodology, but understand that buying dynamic continues to change and evolve.
Yes.
And they're trying to stay with it to stay relevant.
Yes.
And that's the thing for me.
Yeah, I get this. I often get this thing where people, you say, do you understand that the buying process has changed? And they kind of look at you and say, so you're going to buy something. What are you going to do? And I say, well, and they always go, well, I go to Google. And I say, so what do you think your customers are doing? Oh no, they'll just ring me up, or they have to ring me up, because it's like, no, they don't. Or okay, they may do, but they would have actually. They would have actually gone online and actually done some investigation, and probably they've looked at some videos and know what your pricing is. But there is a certain amount of people putting head in the sand over it. I see a lot of it, especially now. I train people on it, and I'm actually actively going out to people, and I look at their LinkedIn profiles, and you see LinkedIn profiles of senior leaders in major B2B companies, and it's scary.
Well, and I think that leads to an important point. What I've seen is a lot of this is from sales leadership. If sales leadership doesn't buy into this, it's very difficult for salespeople to support it, because I've experienced this. So what may happen, for example, from personal experience, you get an engagement with someone senior, important, that you may see as a prospective customer. And I had one where the engagement was simply, I spotted something through a senior leader in this business, and they were interested in getting involved in charities, etc. And I sit on the board of a children's charity. Right. So I used the outreach for that, got a conversation with them, and in speaking, got to inform they got a new CIO coming in. So I didn't go straight in with the sales pitch. I had the conversation about the charity, and then did by the way, well, I've got you, got a laugh. Can I just ask? And then we had a little bit of conversation, learned some things, nuggets, and agreed to have a phone call in a few months, but got information about the new CIO. Looked her up, tweeted something that I thought would be relevant to her based on her background that wasn't directly work related, included her in, and she did a like. Right. And then I did another one a few weeks later. She did a retweet. What I got was from above, that's great, but have you phoned her? Right, that's not the game, right? She's not ready for that phone call. The wall will go up. I am still engaging with that individual, a worldwide brand that everyone would know, global CIO, who now, at some point in that process, it's been about 4 months now, I saw the click, followed me. She now follows my content and often retweets, and we engage. At some point, there'll be relevance for a conversation or a commentary, and I've been slowly working towards that, where there'll be and I can see a point where we'll be at the same event somewhere, and I'll be saying, oh, and I've seen this in others, and I've had this experience where I've chatted to them, and it's, we should have met ages ago. Or I've had people reach out to me, which is the perfect one for me, and say, do you know what? We seem to share a lot of content and comments. We've never met. Next time you're in the city, do you want to set up a meeting? As opposed to trying to go cold, where they're just going to view like everyone else.
But if I've done my fair share of cold calling, and if people aren't ready, you're if you're highly unlikely to get through, or if you do, they'll say ring back in 3 or 6 months. So I don't get really what's the difference between, for me, using social is the same as cold call, is the same as cold calling, but we're just using it in a different mechanism. And if you think about cold calling, you will get, if you ring 100 people, the maths is usually you get through to about five organizations of that 100, and another 20, 25 will say, give me a call back in 25, in about 3 to 6 months. So you're always going through this process of having to do those call back anyway. And so this nurturing process, to use a modern term, this nurturing process, I was always doing that on the phone. I had a wallet which said, right, which had the years, the months, January, February, and I would say, right, so you need to call back in April. So I would basically put the piece of paper with the notes on in April for that, and all we're doing is just moving that online. I think I still have difficulty understanding what's so complex about this.
But the analogy I give is more going to an event or a seminar. You don't walk up and compare. What tends to happen on social IC is I get approached, get an invite to connect or in some way, and then you get the sales pitch.
Yeah.
And I've said to my guys, if you imagine going to an event and you're grabbing coffee at the table, there'll be someone next to you. You make conversation, right? But it's chit chat. Yeah. And typically it's the weather. How long did it take you to get here today? You come a long way. But it starts to get engagement. Yes. Oh yeah, I had to drive all across from. So
did you get caught up in this traffic on the? Oh yeah, and
maybe I came from Southampton. It's like, what? Really? Whereabouts? I grew up there. Yeah. There's often a point of some conversation, and then and the natural bit is then who do you work for? And they ask you questions as well, right? It's politeness, and you start to engage, and you might find some common ground where it's really, we should grab a coffee later. But they feel they're a part of that conversation and choosing to engage, not you're cold. You don't walk up to someone randomly everything and start, while you're here, can I grab some of your time? Because I saw your badge and I'd like to pitch this to you. And that's what you're doing often in cold calling. And that's the way it feels to them. And I think social is more like the event where you're bumping into people and you can find common ground. But you can watch it. That's the interesting thing. It's like you're overhearing their conversations and choosing when to dip on social because they're saying things.
Yes, and if you're at an event, you're never going to go stand at the door and go, "Hey, it's Tim Hughes."
You can listen to all of them,
and you can get 30% off or something like that. Everyone would go, "Oh, get out of here!" You would expect that someone to have a level of conversation. Now, I've said this before that the TV program Top Gear. Days when Jeremy Clarkson did it, where they would have, right, we're going to go to Edinburgh. Someone's going on a motorbike, someone's driving a car, and someone's going on a train, and there would be a race. I still think that if you've got a whole bunch of social sellers and a whole bunch of cold callers in 2 different rooms and said, right, these are the people that you've got to get hold of, I still think that the social sellers would get there first, because in my previous job, I ran telesales-people, and we had our best result through telesales. But there's a level in the organisation that you can't get to. And
I also think Tim, it's changing. I think telesales organisations are finding it harder and harder and harder.
Oh, they're having to make more and more calls, but there is a level in an organisation which you can't get above with telesales. And I can get, I approach senior business leaders because of what I sell in terms of social selling and social consultancy. It's pointless going in low. It's still a very, very high level sell. And, I contacted an MD the other day and he said, yeah, come and sit. But if I tried to phone that person up, I would never have got through. Now, I agree that I'm slightly a little bit more outward in the social scheme, but if you're, I know people that are getting successful at that, and they've only got 450 followers on Twitter. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's, and I've had some of my guys. Comments I get are, well, I don't have a massive audience, so I don't want to go on Twitter because I don't want to tweet about stuff and publish stuff. And I don't want to be saying about what sandwich I've had. And I've said to them, Twitter isn't just about publishing, it's about listening.
Yeah.
And for salespeople, it's about listening. You don't need to have a few followers, not zero, because no photo, because anyone you try and engage with is going to take, we're talking about the bio, going to look at it and go, who's this?
Yeah.
So they're going to check, right, what's your title? Get your bio right on there. It's only short. Get a professional. Just make, if someone takes a look at it, how are they going to perceive you is the first thing.
So in terms of, so you need a bio, you need a photo, you need there's a link in terms of call to action about where they can go to get more information. And then what do you say to salespeople in terms of how they would engage on Twitter?
So I said, well, the high thing I say is don't sell.
Yes.
It's not about pitching. It's about engaging and informing and or entertaining.
Right. So is this about finding a subject that you want to be famous for and then putting?
Well, if you want to build a profile and bio, absolutely.
You're famous for cloud. If you go to your Twitter stream, I mean, it's cloud, and you're what number something one in the world for cloud or something. So yeah. So you decided that you're going to be famous for cloud.
Well, that's because I've been in the cloud environment for 10 years. But what I said to salespeople is, it's not about trying to have that person, that piece. You don't have to write blogs. You don't have to do all this, because that will definitely put people off. What I've said to them is about looking professional on that bio, right? Just making sure it looks slick, says who you work for, etc. So someone looks at it, they go, it's credible. It doesn't have a party photo or whatever. Keep that as a separate account if you so wish. But it's about listening to the people you want to engage. Maybe do a Twitter list of the people you want to get into, and keep an eye on what they're saying and talking about. And you'll find some don't talk about anything on there that's relevant to work or you can engage with, and you can't force it, right? If they're talking about they're particularly into archaeological history and you have that's not even 1% of what you're interested in or have any knowledge of, don't try and engage and read and put fake comments, because you're false, right?
Yeah.
Be who you are. But if they're talking about IT data security, or they're talking about the latest development in manufacturing, etc., and you've got something to say or an opinion, or you've seen an interesting article, why not just comment on that? Great point. However, this article really says that that's going to change in the next 5 years, and put a link. There's no agenda there apart from informing or engaging and taking part, right? You're not trying to, it's about trying to get them to notice you. And I've said to people, if you like, comment, retweet, follow, any of that stuff, people do notice it. If they've taken trouble to have an account, they notice people who engage with them. Maybe not the first time, but if you continually engage, and that's how we got engaged, right? I can't think where there was no particular. We started to engage in some way and noticed each other and started.
I know we're best of mates.
So it happens that way, and I've met a lot of global sales book authors from the States. Not because I reached out to them with an agenda, but because I like their content, or I'd retweet occasionally, and I got them saying, "Thanks for the retweet. Thanks for sharing my information in the UK. I'm coming to the UK for this event. Would you like to come and meet?"
Right.
So I've made a lot of good, strong contacts that if I'd reached out cold to, never would have happened. So what I've said to people is it's about playing the long game. Don't expect to do one thing and then pitch them, but do it. So therefore, do it in parallel with what you're doing. Right. Still do I've got a target to hit, cold calling, your sales behavior to drive stuff down. Absolutely, and do this in parallel for the stuff down the line. This is about making your job and your life easier in that 6 to 9 months, so that because you've done stuff now, it starts to pay off down the line. You get a meeting or a project comes up in a customer and they invite you to take part because you do this, don't you? Well, I've noticed you posting stuff about it because I follow you now. I'm going to send you the bid. Is that all right? Where you might not have had it otherwise. So it's about feeding your future. I guess.
Yeah, I say to people, which is about, from a social perspective, your LinkedIn profile. And I know this is a little bit more advanced, but if you're not getting inbound, you're kind of doing it wrong, because you should be. It's one of those things where you need to be. To get, you have to give. But you need to keep giving, and you need to be putting out information about that will attract people, and then engaging with people. But it's no different from standing by the drinking tea, at your LA conference, and you've got 10 minutes before it starts, you bump into somebody, what do you do? Did you and do that? And it's kind of no more different from that polite conversation.
Yeah, and the other thing I think on LinkedIn is look at what their interests are, look down the bottom, you know, what do they do, look at, have they posted any blogs or content themselves, or what stuff do they share? And you can see all this easy. The tools allow you to do this and dissect and look at information. What are they sharing about? You know, are they posting stuff? Have they commented any articles? You'll look that up, right? Well, what are they posting on Twitter? And if they're posting tons of stuff about a particular subject, it's of interest to them in some way, and or they believe that agenda, right? You don't repost something you vehemently disagree with. No. Or if you're into data security and you post something about the importance of X, Y, and Z, you've got to think that person's, for some reason, has shared that with their audience. They thought there was some value in it. Can I comment on it? Or can I share something back with them that adds value that they might want to retweet? It's about getting them to see value in you as an individual.
Yes.
And get them to see that first. And then they're going to look at, well, who do you work for? What do they do? Because they start to get interested, notice you, they'll look at that, right? Or where are you from? They'll figure that out as well. But that takes a longer time than just instant, here I am, can I talk to you because I want to flog you something? That game for me has changed.
I think even though cold calling is important, I think even though that your types of calls have to basically change. Anyway, that's we're now about 20 minutes in. I seem to have lost Ian for some reason or other. So I'm going to bring the recording to a halt. Oh, here we go. Ian, I lost you for a second there.
No, welcome to the world of the internet, right? I don't know what happened. I was happily talking away and it just went, and I didn't know I'd gone. So
right, okay. So anyway, we're now about we're over our 20 minutes anyway. So thank you. So let people know where they can get hold of you, where your Twitter is and your LinkedIn and stuff.
Sure. So 2 easy ways: LinkedIn, www.ianmoyse.co.uk, and Twitter @iMoyse, IMOYSE.
And you're always active on social, and I know that if someone sends you a link, you're pretty much turning that round in terms of, you know, if it's not at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, and because you're constantly pretty much on social. You're one of the most
interesting. I'll give you a trick away, right? And this is one of the worries of salespeople have as a final note. You don't have to be on it all the time. You can schedule things, look at good content and decide, I want that to go out during the day. So I went on a holiday recently for 2 weeks. No one would have known because
we didn't.
I'd schedule ahead content to be going out that was relevant. So I chose the content. However, I'd scheduled it ahead with free tools, very simple to do, so that the audience engagement continued.
But the trick is that you engaged even though you were putting out automated content.
Right.
Because the thing is that I've just seen someone who's a sales leader, and they've found out that there's this thing called Twitter, and now what they've done is automated the thing.
Yeah,
and
there's a danger in that.
Someone actually contacted them, and I happened to be on there and said, "I can't. This link doesn't work," and they've never responded.
Yeah,
I had to go.
I get that occasionally. I get a DMs sort of on something saying, "Well, this," because I automate response. If you connect to me, you'll get an automated "Thank you for connecting." You'll also reach me at these links. Again, that's a free tool, but it sends an auto response message. And I quite often get people respond to that, go, "Oh, an automated account, no one there then." And then I obviously like doing the quick, "Yeah, I am here, but that was automated, but I am real," because they think the whole thing's automated. I think it's getting a balance. You can automate that individual.
Right. Perfect. Ian, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see you on social soon. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Seems to have got you back again. Stopping.